Olushola, apologies. I think you were muted because the recording started. Apologies about that. Autumn, can you please share your screen again? And Olushola, you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
You can enable your camera as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I can let me introduce our speakers once more, just in case. I don't know whether I was cut off.
You were just cut off at the end of Michael Gordon's introduction, so you can continue on Michael Gordon's introduction.
Okay.
Everything else. Thank you.
Okay, great. So finally, we have Mr. Michael Gordon, who is representing the second partner financial institution of today's session, the Central Finance Facility of Trinidad and Tobago. With over 35 years of experience in financial management and entrepreneurship development, Michael's major focus is to shape and implement climate resilient initiatives in Trinidad and Tobago. Through his management of the Central Finance Facility, he has spearheaded efforts to expand green products and services of the institution. So we have an interesting lineup for you today. Our session will consist of short presentations from each of the panelists, followed by discussion and Q&A. Please, during the course of the presentations, you are more than welcome to submit your questions in the chat. So now to get us started, we'll hear from Pavel from GreenMax, who will share some of his experiences on the common barriers in project implementation and solutions to overcoming them. Pavel, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Olusola. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to share our experience with the adaptation finance and more general with the climate finance in the region and globally. Next slide, please. In my short presentation, I will introduce to GreenMax global operations, show you summary of the EcoMicro project in Dominica, and share with you insights into the adaptation finance in the region and beyond. Next slide, please. GreenMax Capital Advisors is a global firm in the clean energy sector in emerging markets. Over the last 30 years, we have executed projects across 5 continents in more than 80 countries. Since 2007, we are active in the Caribbean with projects in 8 countries, which are listed on the right side, including Dominica and Suriname under the IDB's EcoMicro program. In addition to consulting, we offer transaction advisory and fund management services to project developers, renewable energy companies, investors, financial institutions, donor agencies, and governments. Next slide, please. Advising to the National Development Foundation in Dominica was our first project with the IDB's EcoMicro program, with focus on both mitigation and adaptation finance. With our partner, we have identified opportunities for climate finance in the country, developed respective financial products, and started the lending. Next slide, please. Here are listed the major deliverables under the project and the implementation timeline from 2019 to 2022. As you can see, the project was negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, which led to the delay of the pilot lending phase of the project. Next slide, please. Despite the unfavorable circumstances, the NDFD was able to roll out the green lending, supporting 52 clients with the total financing about $400,000 equivalent, with balanced distributions among households, fisheries, farms, and other MSMEs. The average size of the individual loans is in the range from 5,000 for households up to 15,000 for fisheries. Taking into account the size of the market, just keep in mind that Dominica has population just about 70,000 plus people, and NDFD itself, we believe that project achieved the original scope. Next slide, please. Looking at the type of technologies financed, the major share is with the outboard engines for fisheries, followed by house retrofits and adaptation technologies in agriculture, which includes greenhouses, aquaponics and hydroponics, rainwater harvesting, and drip irrigation. The other finance technologies are energy efficiency appliances, PV solar, and biodegradable equipment. The split between mitigation and adaptation lending is 60 to 40. This is really encouraging number from the point of view that adaptation finance globally represent just 5% of the total climate finance flows. Next slide, please. Now I want to share our findings and conclusions from this and other projects in the region and in other parts of the world. We have grouped this into 5 listed topics. Next slide, please. The definition of the target markets is critical for all other components in the adaptation finance. In our case, the low-income households and MSMEs represents the most challenging market segments from the point of view of the climate change impact and bankability. The groups are the most vulnerable to the impacts of the climate change and at the same time, the least bankable, which means that there are urgent climate finance needs are mostly not served by the mainstream financial institutions. The way how to address this challenge is the innovation of the credit assessment process. In general, it is necessary to abandon the traditional balance sheet, asset-based collaterals approach with the approach based on the expected project cash flows. Another important piece of the credit process is the emphasis on the know your client techniques, including characters-based lending borrowed from the microfinance industry. Without those adjustments to the credit process, it is not possible to serve the majority of the target market with the adaptation finance products. Next slide, please. Green technology know-how is another important factor in the climate finance, not just in the region, but globally. To transfer the know-how to financial intermediaries is necessary to make sound climate lending credit decisions and also advise the potential borrowers on the technology selection. To be realistic, we cannot expect that the bankers will be converted into engineers. A proven way how to address the challenge is building partnership with the climate business stakeholders, including technology and equipment suppliers, engineering companies, professional associations, community-based organizations. In addition to be familiar with the latest technology development and financing needs in the market, it can also help decrease the cost of doing business for financial intermediaries. Next slide. Another important component of the climate finance is cost of funding, determining the cost of borrowing. We are facing here a challenge to strike a balance between the sustainability and affordability. While fully commercial funding is assuring the lending business sustainability, in the same time, it represents also one of the most challenging barriers to access to finance for the most of vulnerable borrowers. We learned that access to low cost, which means below the market but not necessarily grant funding, is critical for the target market segments, especially in the lending scale-up phase. We have also learned that the access to the international or regional sources of climate finance is often difficult because of funding needs scale, which is obviously too small, and the level of financial intermediary sophistication, status, and lack of track record. Next slide, please. Without any doubt, as presented earlier, the regulatory framework is determining adaptation projects' feasibility to a large extent. This includes a relation between the energy prices and fossil fuel subsidies and incentives for introducing green adaptation technologies. Important but often neglected is the role of the central banks in the field. This can include, for instance, green lending taxonomy applied by financial intermediaries and climate risk assessment of the lending portfolio of the financial intermediaries. We see a good opportunity in the region to implement the best global practice in the green banking regulations. Next slide, please. My last point is on the climate risk assessment, which should be integral part of the credit decisions and the loan portfolio management. In the case of the presented project, we have focused on two most common physical risks, namely the risk of flash floods and landslides. The relatively simple and easy to use tool based on the GPS coordinates and using GIS databases allow one to determine the risk in the specific location. The most important factor is the access to the databases, since the development of such tool is beyond the capacity of individual financial intermediaries or even country. Next slide, please. This slide just illustrates the use of such a system, showing the most vulnerable areas for the both sides of the risk, which can be used in the credit decision before the loan approval and after the loan disbursement as well. I stop here and thank you for your attention. I'm available to answer your questions, if any. Back to you, Ursula.
Thank you very much, Pavel, for that very valuable insight in helping us to understand the most important factors in the adaptation finance ecosystem, particularly for microfinance institutions. So just a reminder to our audience, we have a Q&A session at the end of all the presentations, and you're also welcome to drop your questions in the chat. Thank you very much. So next we'll have Natasha Joseph from the Grenada Development Bank. Natasha will share with us some of the approaches to green and resilient lending, highlighting the obstacles and strategies to overcoming them. Natasha, over to you.
Good morning, good evening to you all wherever you are, and thanks for this opportunity to speak about the Grenada Development Bank's approach to climate financing. As we move on to the next slide, our case for climate finance is predicated on who we are as an institution. The GDB is solely owned by the government of Grenada, and as such is an agent of project implementation within the private sector. Grenada is a small island developing state with approximately 117,000 people and highly susceptible to climate risks such as sea level rise, hurricanes, droughts, etc. We recently experienced the ravages of Hurricane Beryl and are still in a recovery phase as it relates to that. And so as we look at these disasters that are becoming more frequent and intense, the question was, what can the GDB as an entity do to the critical sectors with which it's financing, tourism, agriculture, housing, etc., to improve not only their resilience, but the resilience of the bank as a whole, as an institution. And so we began our climate finance initiatives in 2013 with a mitigation pilot within the hotel sector. And since then, we've been ramping up our activities to cater and deal with the incidents that we've been seeing that are becoming more frequent and intense. So as we move on to the next slide, our strategy for green lending seeks to position us as a leading provider of climate finance in Grenada. And that is done in many spaces and through many interventions, including collaboration with regional and global entities and intermediaries for funding, as the case may be, to mobilize climate investments. We particularly seek to focus on adaptation because we understand the need to ensure that our country adapts to the impacts of climate change by positioning ourselves and positioning our customers and overall the country as a whole to be able to withstand the implications of climate change. So while we focus on adaptation, of course, we promote renewable energy and energy efficiency solutions. We have developed products that look at concessional financing in order to help our population adapt to climate change. by increasing and improving the resilience of our property owners within the private sector. And so as we move on to the next slide, these are some of the initiatives and products that we have developed coming out of EcoMicro, where we believe we have the most advantage and we're able to promote our customers and our beneficiaries to build their resilience. So we start with a basic product that look at our existing portfolio and how we can build their resilience to climate change through creating resilient properties. And then we move on to the next level where when new projects come up for financing, how do we integrate and include resilient construction, resilient methodologies, resilient solutions into the implementation, both at a residential and a commercial stage. So we look at incorporating resilience technologies, we look at adaptation methods and solutions. And we hope to get to a stage where we can provide, and through collaboration with our risk transfer mechanisms, be able to provide our portfolio with some sort of incentive for becoming more resilient. We have had discussions with local insurance companies as it relates to how do we incentivize or provide our customers with some sort of rebate on their premiums for becoming more resilient. And that particular initiative, we look at for a future state where we can be able to provide that as an incentive. And so as we move on to the next slide, these are some of the solutions that we have in the marketplace. Within our mitigation strategies, we look at energy efficiency, renewable energy. We soon to be looking at transportation within the sector, as well as waste management. And of course, adaptation strategies center around food security, efficient water usage, and our building structures. One of the things we note coming out of Hurricane Beryl is a need to build back better, and a need for our population to take and pay particular attention to building codes, a need for enforcement of regulations, as the case may be, so that we can, we're not looking at being hit with another one, hopefully in no time soon, but if in the event that something like that happens in the future, that we have a more robust building stock that can stand up to a category 3, 4 hurricane, which Beryl was. And so in the next slide, we look at some of the challenges that we've experienced and some of the lessons learned. And for us, we realize that it's very important that our strategies are aligned to national priorities. And so very early in our processes, we've had engagement with our board of directors, and we make sure that our activities are aligned and oriented around our NAP, our NDCs. As the case may be, we have potential concept notes in Grenada's country program as an institution. So we position and integrating ourselves into the national conversation and construct. We've realized as well that there's a significant gap between knowledge and action on the part of our people. And so when you look at the information that our population has as it relates to climate change, they're understanding the impact. But we're seeing that we're challenged to translate that into behavioral change. And so even as we look at using various communication channels, we realize that social media is very effective within that demographic. We're also realizing that our students have a great influence on their parents. So there's been a lot of focus on how do we get the message across, not just to bring awareness, but to change action. As well as we look at the change of behaviors and action, incorporating our service providers, both of equipment and services, so that they too are on board with being able to provide equipment and technologies that benefit the resilient space. And so as an entity, we also provide capacity building within the private sector. We soon to be implementing a GCF readiness project that looks at private sector readiness within the private sector. And so these are some of the areas that we are looking at and have been engaging as an entity. The previous presenter mentioned concessional financing, and that underscores all the actions that need to be taken. The persons that are in harm's way, the persons who directly stand to benefit in most cases, are the ones who are not able to finance their projects at the market rate. So how do we as an entity obtain concessional financing in order to do some of these projects that are required? And so collaboration is a great way for us. And as we seek, as well as an institution, to become an accredited direct access entity to the Green Climate Fund, that again is one of our objectives as well. Additionally, we are looking at operationalizing future climate finance policy changes that have been approved at the board level already through the phased implementation of an environmental and social management system. So as I move on to my final slide, I think these are initiatives that we have ongoing and that we have planned towards the future. As I mentioned previously, the implementation of our ESMS, which directly speaks to how we engage as an entity and how we engage our customers, including the implementation of our climate risk assessment and portfolio vulnerability reduction plan. As we look at creating a portfolio that's strong and resilient, by also extending training to our staff through various programs, through adaptation solutions and various initiatives, so that they can adequately provide our customers with the information that's required. And of course, ongoing our awareness campaigns through critical economic sectors, that not just ones that we serve, but are key to development within our country through the various means and methodologies that are available. We find partnering with NGOs, with government ministries, with CSOs as part of our mandate that brings awareness to various sectors of our population. And finally, of course, the final and formal implementation of our scale strategy, which has already been approved by the board of directors as we move towards fully integrating climate finance and climate change initiatives within our portfolio. So thanks again for the opportunity to present, and look forward to your questions and comments.
Thank you very much, Natasha, for that very informative presentation where you emphasized really on the importance of collaboration and working across different levels, not just within your institution, but working across different levels in the society to push in the envelope on adaptation finance in Grenada. Thank you very much. Now, for our final presentation, today we'll hear from Michael Gordon of the Central Finance Facility, who will also outline their approaches to green and resilient lending and share their experiences as well. Michael, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. My apologies for not having my background. There seems to be some technical issues going on with me, because also I can't even see your presentation. But I will move on. I will use what we have, and I'll continue. So you just follow my discussion. I will sort of try to explain which slide I'm on. Okay. So one of those days, but we will conquer. So as was indicated, I'm from the Central Finance Facility organization in Trinidad and Tobago that we formed in 2001, and our focus is really about cooperation among cooperatives. And if you look at our vision and mission, which is in the next slide, it talks about to be a premier financial intermediary and development institution for cooperatives through our mission of cooperation among cooperatives. So what we're seeking to do is work together with other credit unions to achieve the goals of national development and social development as well. So at the next slide, we try to provide explanation of why we do green financing. So it's because there's a demonstrated need for that specific financing in the region, and particularly in Trinidad and Tobago. And the thing about Trinidad and Tobago is that we are an oil and gas economy. So consumers consumers benefit from subsidies and other energy benefits. So therefore, it's not usually a priority for them. But what we sought to do is we tried to now create a product that will not only just a product, but an ecosystem that will seek to facilitate entrepreneurship development and consumption of green products and services by consumers in the country. So, and why we think it's important, because the credit union movement is generally people focused. So our effort is really to seek to introduce climate resilience projects that will really support, support the People, Profit, Planet Triple P initiatives. So, so what is so we developed a program called CU Green, and that's a program. Prior to the EcoMicro program, we developed this project to focus on development of the green, and it was really to focus on increasing awareness, demand for products and services, support economic diversification, create new entrepreneurship opportunities in the country, to access sector targeted financing, which is where the green financing comes in, and also position the movement to be a leader in the development of the green economy. So the next slide is what we're trying to achieve is developing a green economy support network, which will include the creation of an adoption of green financing initiatives, also focus on establishing funding for programs that will support the green transition, establish partnerships with international local organizations that involving green entrepreneurship development, and also the entire green economy, including alliances with ministries and other public sector agencies. And a lot of this discussion about partnership took place today, and this is just another example of us trying to move in that direction. Also create a system of promotion and awareness to highlight the opportunities of green entrepreneurs and enterprises, and also to allow persons to realize that there are green green product and service opportunities that they should seek to address, to target affirmatively. Development of a green enterprise ecosystem, have a green network system to support acquisition of innovation and green technology, and also establish of a green certification program that will certify those organizations who are actually green. So the next thing is what we seek to is create opportunities, and we have identified at least 4 sectors where there are opportunities: energy, transportation, waste management, agriculture, and construction. And particularly when it comes to construction, we want to create greater emphasis on providing support to commercial but more importantly residential, in terms of constructing homes that be much more environmentally friendly. Well, our target groups would be credit union members, those who come for loans for consumer items. We want them to utilize the green loans to purchase the green products and services, and also credit unions with members who have businesses. So we're looking to also try to create much more activity and much more opportunities for persons in that sector. And in terms of what are the outputs? We recognize that the green economy is inevitable, and we cannot continue to operate on subsidized energy, because we spend billions of dollars every year in trying to be subsidizing our energy, and we realize that it's important for us to create new opportunities for green products and services that will allow people to transition away from the subsidies that currently exist, right? And the credit unions can do more to prepare membership, and we do it and we could facilitate that through the public education that we spoke about. We want the movement to improve its capacity to support the green economy, and we want the cooperative sector and the enterprise, the credit unions and the cooperative movement will be significant players in the economic diversification, because we believe that we can introduce new initiatives in this sector in the green economy that will benefit the cooperative movement. And what are the expected outcomes? Now, as I said, because we are oil and gas economy, we believe that there are some challenges that people will automatically be resistant or hesitant to focus on green products and services. But what we recognize, we have over 500,000 people in our sector, in the cooperative sector, and we believe that they can make a significant contribution to the climate resilience effort if we target our members. And once we have built that ecosystem, so it's really important for us as I indicated earlier, to build an ecosystem that will support not only the green financing, not only provide green financing, but all the other initiatives that are necessary to encourage the demand for green products and services. So we think the green economy will create new employment. It will encourage investment in non-traditional sectors. It will facilitate support services. People who are in the sector, there'll be a greater demand for these technical persons to participate in the green economy. It will support economic diversification. It will encourage new areas of entrepreneurship, support innovation in new existing businesses. And in some of the projects we worked on in other projects, we realized that we are able to start giving opportunities to entrepreneurs who may have one source of raw material to start looking for much more climate resilient or eco-friendly raw materials. And you see that can happen a lot with the greater focus on the green economy. Reduce long-run economic costs of businesses and government. So, for example, in Trinidad and Tobago, we subsidize electricity heavily. And even if we increase the prices, there'll still be a subsidy in the country. So what we're saying is that if we're able to develop the green economy, what do you think will happen is that the demand for the subsidies for the green products and services will decline. We wouldn't need to utilize subsidies for electricity as much, and the savings we have for this, since our electricity is used by gas, is created by gas, we could actually convert that gas into more high value added products and services, which will ultimately benefit the economy. And then we could also transition to supplement our oil and gas revenue. So I'm open to answer any questions that you may have, and thank you very much for inviting me to participate.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that very detailed presentation on the importance of building green economy and how to foster an entrepreneurial ecosystem in that space. Now we've come to the end of all our presentations. Thank you all to the speakers for those illuminating presentations. We'll now open the floor for some questions. If you have any questions, please type it into the chat or you raise your hand and I will invite you to speak. We'll address as many questions as possible within the 10 minutes that we have. Any questions? I don't see any questions yet, but maybe I can just throw this out to Pavel. So in your presentation, you highlighted the importance of technical know-how as one of the most important factors in pushing adaptation finance. And in your experience, what would you consider the most significant knowledge gaps or capacity issues that you'll have encountered among financial institutions when advising them on climate smart products and services? Also, how do you tailor that approach to address these gaps and build institutional capacity?
I think from our experience from this project, but also from other projects globally, technical know-how is really key to enter the green finance and adaptation finance in general, from financial institution perspective, to be able to manage those risks, to understand. As I have mentioned, there is no kind of intention to become the experts, but really to know the sources of information. And therefore, we are trying to share with the partner financial institutions where to find the information and how to use them, because without that, proper credit assessment is not possible. Another significant gap, I think, in the region in general is in the area of risk management, climate risk management in the portfolios, because this is becoming more and more important from the point of view of conducting business in this area. And as I have mentioned, I would expect a little bit more kind of involvement of the regulatory bodies like central banks in this space, because in many other parts of the world they are taking the leading role and basically guiding the financial institutions. So transfer of this knowledge was also part of our kind of strategy, how to address this gap and basically to mitigate the potential risk for these kind of projects.
Thank you very much for that, for a detailed response. I saw Nick raise his hand for a question. Please go ahead.
One second, Nick, I'm
Nick?
just going to unmute you 1 second.
Hello, can you hear me? Lovely.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I found the conversation from the speakers really engaging. I have essentially a architectural business and looking to implement some really innovative, sustainable construction materials into the Caribbean, and that can directly support coastal habitats as well as stronger, more resilient buildings and structures. And this has really been implemented, quite well into Asia, and also, looking into geothermal energy sources and the rest of it. And this material is completely non-corrosive, which is a one-of-a-kind thing for the Caribbean region and its whole. I'd be really interested to explore, especially around from the Trinidad and some of the different perspective of the islands, how both governments and private entities are prepared for an adoption of this kind of the scale.
Yeah, I think that was directed. Michael, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Yeah, sure. As I said, it's an area we're seeking to develop right now. And one of the most important things that we have to do is to create partnerships, particularly people in the international community who have had experiences in other countries, to be able to work with us to achieve some of these things. And this is one of the areas spoke about residential and construction generally. And that's one of the most important components, because there's a lot of waste in that sector. So it'd be interesting to see how we can work that. But as I said, the objective is to ensure that we establish partnerships with persons who will be able to support us in those regards. So yourself as an architect is a very important partner with whom you would love to work with to see how we can make this happen. We have established partnerships with people in the country already. We have a green building council, for example. So maybe the first thing you can do is reach out to the Green Building Council and find out how you can work with them to help us do what we all are trying to achieve.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Michael, for the response. We have a question here in the chat, which is directed at Natasha. From Ms. Joseph mentioned speaking with insurance companies regarding supporting their climate resilience financing. What has the feedback been, and has insurance of RE projects in particular been a gap in investment in Grenada?
Okay, those are two separate questions. I'll take the first one. Yeah, I'll take the first one as it relates to insurance. There is a specific challenge regarding the level of risk that's involved. Insurance as a risk transfer mechanism. One of the things we've discovered in our conversations, and there's been a recent workshop over the last month held with the OECS Commission, specifically looking at resilience building construction according to building code. The challenge we have as a region is our small size, and particularly as a country, how does our small size stack up when we look at the international reinsurers and what they're willing to offer as it relates to insurance coverages and premiums? That is one of the risks that we see, and one of the challenges that has to be worked out when you talk about insurance. So from our discussions, this is something that is wider than one country, and it would have to be a collaborative effort within the region in order to realize those types of benefits to our consumers. The next part related to renewable energy, is it?
Yeah. She wants to know what has the feedback been, and as insurance of RE projects, that's insurance of renewable energy projects in particular, been a gap in investment in Grenada.
Oh, okay. In insurance of renewables, we have some projects, and we have some small type power producers, and they have been able to be insured. Our insurance companies are taking on the risk, although at a higher rate, but it is available. So while it is available, the cost of insurance again is matching the risk, especially as we're situated, although to the lower end of the hurricane belt, we're still susceptible. So those premiums are priced based on the risk involved, but it is available. And I don't think it's much of a gap, because there has been an increase in demand for renewable energy, solar PV systems, especially at the household level. We've seen an increase in demand there. Our Public Utility Regulatory Commission recently put out another call for proposals at both the independent power producer and the household level. So we're seeing some measure of demand that I don't think is being compromised by the challenge of insurance.
Great, thank you very much for your response. With just 1 minute left in this session, I think we'll wrap up today. I want to thank the speakers, Pavel, Natasha, and Michael, for sharing your very valuable experience. So we have learned very well today that you have highlighted today the importance of addressing some of the barriers that we face in the financial value chain, and some of the practical solutions that we can scale up. I think one takeaway from our discussion today is that while there are existing challenges, related to data, financial, and technical capacity, as well as the risk management, there's some innovative ways financial institutions are pushing forward to implement climate smart solutions and building resilience in the Caribbean region. So I want to thank everyone, the audience, for your active participation. Let's take these lessons forward as we continue to work toward a climate resilient future for the Caribbean. At this moment, we'll take a short break for the next session. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.